So most marriages don't end up in disconnection in any sort of dramatic way. Typically, they flatten, right? Slowly, quietly. And the couples it happens to, these are good couples, good individuals who love each other. They often don't even see it coming. Here's what I've noticed working with couples for the last 8 years. There's a very specific moment that's almost invisible as it starts to happen when a marriage stops deepening and starts kind of flattening out. It becomes surface level. It's not going backwards. It's not jumping into conflict all the time. It's just, there's like a flatness to it. And ironically, when that moment arrives, it can often look like things are getting better in a relationship. It's more stable. There's less friction. Things seem easier, probably much more comfortable. But that smoothing out is sometimes the first sign that something very important is fading in a relationship. And by the end of this video, you'll know whether what you're experiencing is just a busy season of life or if it's the beginning of a pattern that slowly drains a marriage of its depth, of its intimacy, of its polarity. Because the most important thing I want to say to you today is this: marriages don't collapse, they actually slowly lose depth. And depth is very quiet when it leaves. So let me paint a picture for you here. It's a Saturday morning in your home. Like any Saturday morning, right? There's no particular agenda here. You're in the kitchen, maybe you're making coffee, your partner's at the table, they're on their phone, they're on their laptop. Maybe there's background noise, TV on, kids are in the house somewhere. I mean, this is the average Saturday morning in my house, to be honest. You ask your partner if they want breakfast, they say sure. You make it, you eat together, talk a little, right? Mostly about the weekend, what needs to get done, who's going where. Then you both kind of drift into the day, right? You do your things, them, they do their things. There's nothing wrong with that morning. There's nothing tense about it. There's nothing missing exactly. But if you slow down and actually feel it, there's a kind of quiet in that morning that isn't peaceful. It's just empty. That's what the flattening feels like. It's not a bad day. It's not an argument you're recovering from. It's just a morning where two people who are together happen to be in the same room. And here's the hardest part, right? Here's what makes it so hard to name. That morning externally looks completely normal from the outside, and sometimes even from the inside if you're, protecting yourself from this truth. It doesn't register as a problem. It registers as just life. And that's exactly why the drift goes unnoticed for so long. Because it doesn't happen in one morning. It happens through 100 mornings, exactly like that one. Think about how your relationship used to feel. Touch used to be expressive. You'd reach for each other without a reason. And certainly you weren't cautious about touching your partner. You shared physical affection that communicated something: warmth, desire, presence. Now, touch has become functional. Quick kiss before you go to work, a hug when you come home, maybe a quick goodnight as you look over from your iPad. Conversations used to go somewhere. You talk about ideas, about what you were thinking, about what you wanted. There was this exploratory quality to it. Now, conversations handle things, right? The week's schedule, the kids' needs, what still needs to get done, right? The infinite to-do list. And the energy between you, that pull, that gravitational pull of wanting and desire. These used to feel like something you were both aware of, like you knew it was there. Now it feels more like something you remember. something you felt once, but haven't felt in a long time. The relationship still works. It just stops feeling alive, right? I've seen this pattern so many times. I experienced it in my own marriage once. It's been so common, I gave it a name. I call it the roommate pattern in the work that I do. Not because couples became enemies, but because they became very competent cohabitants, right? Sharing a house, sharing responsibilities, sharing a calendar, but not really sharing a meaningful life. And I want to explain two things for the rest of this video. First, we're going to talk about why this happens to good couples specifically and what the path back actually looks like in a long-term relationship. And why now my wife and I we feel more connected, more intimate than we've ever felt in our relationship. And that's the work that I do with couples now, is I try to remind them that the best years of your marriage are actually ahead of you, not behind. And here's the part that also surprises a lot of people. The couples that are most vulnerable to this roommate pattern are actually not the ones that fight a lot, right? They're the ones that don't fight a lot. Think about that for a second, because most people assume that low conflict means relationship is healthy, right? We never fight. I totally get that. Totally understand why. To be honest, conflict done in an unhealthy way is exhausting. When arguments settle down, when the household finally runs smoothly, when things feel stable and calm, I mean, everything's comfortable. And comfort can feel like progress. I mean, in some ways it is. But here's a distinction that most couples tend to miss. Low conflict doesn't equal high connection. Peace is not the same thing as intimacy. You can have peace in your relationship with almost no depth, because depth requires something that peace on its own doesn't produce. It requires the willingness to bring something real into the room, a real question, a real disagreement, a real desire, something that has some weight to it, some teeth to it, something that might not really land perfectly or might be awkward or uncomfortable at first because it's not something you often talk about. When couples settle into management mode, running the house, running the schedule, keeping things smooth, those moments of genuine risk, they quietly disappear. It's risky to ask for what you want. Could rock the boat. It's risky to share a truth. But without them, the relationship stops generating new depth. It just runs efficiently, comfortably. I remember working with this couple not too long ago, actually. Um, they were busy. I mean, they had 4 kids, they had good careers, they had a beautiful home they were proud of. When I asked them how things were, they both said, like, we don't fight anymore. It was quiet after that. I didn't say anything. Then after a pause, one of them said, but we also don't really feel much of anything. I remember that line just stayed in the room because it captured something so precisely. I mean, I'm getting chills now as I'm talking about it. They had optimized their marriage. They had removed all the friction. And in removing that friction, they also removed feeling. I mean, let me ask you something directly here. When was the last time you brought something into a conversation with your partner that even felt a little bit risky? And listen, not a complaint here, not a schedule question, right? Not just like blaming them for anything. I mean, something real, vulnerable that you weren't sure how they would receive. I mean, if that's hard to answer, you're probably already in this pattern. Good couples, they're especially vulnerable to this because honestly, nothing feels urgent. It's just comfort all the time. The relationship works, it functions. There's no obvious crisis to respond to. So the drift goes unnoticed. until one day someone looks up, realizes they can't even remember last time the relationship felt like something they actually were in rather than something they were just managing. And here's the thing. When I work with couples in this pattern, there's three specific capacities that are always eroded. Not one, all three of these capacities are eroded. And rebuilding them in the right sequence is what actually reverses this drift, this roommate pattern. Now, I'm going to walk you through exactly what those are. But first, let me close the loop that I opened at the beginning of this video. Now, if you remember at the beginning of this video, I said there's a specific moment when a marriage stops deepening and starts going flat. And I said that, when it happens, it often looks like things are getting better. Now, that moment specifically is this. It's when the relationship stops being something you tend to and it becomes something you manage. It's the shift from how are we doing to how do we handle this? From reaching towards each other to running and solving things together. And here's the strangest thing about that shift. It feels like maturity. It feels like the relationship has grown up, right? There's less drama, there's less intensity, it's more smooth. And it is mature in a way. But mature doesn't mean connected. And smooth certainly doesn't mean alive. That's the moment that a lot of good couples in long-term marriages tend to miss. Not the blow up, there's no betrayal. It's just a quiet shift from tending to the marriage. And once that shift happens, the relationship starts running on its own momentum until the momentum runs out because nobody's actually tending to it. You're just two people managing your lives. And earlier I gave this a name, right? The roommate pattern. But I want to add one layer to this now because I don't think naming it necessarily is enough, right? A lot of people hear roommate pattern like, oh yeah, cool, I get it. But there's actually a really painful irony in the roommate pattern. Both people usually feel this too. Both people are wondering, often privately, right? They don't talk about this, if their partner feels it too, because nothing is dramatically wrong. Because of that, nobody says anything. And to be honest, their silence becomes their own kind of agreement that this is just what long-term relationships are. I mean, how many times have people just said that to you? It just is what it is. Long-term marriages aren't supposed to be full of passion. And to be honest, I want to push back on that hard. I've had so many people that just accept this roommate pattern of dead marriages. In my marriage, we've been together 22 years and it's the best it's ever been. And I'm not making that up. It feels amazing. You can listen. We talk about it on the podcast. And when I work with couples in this roommate pattern, listen, we don't start by assigning blame. We don't analyze the past, right? It's not about these traumatic core wounds. We just start rebuilding. Specifically, we rebuild three core capacities that the drift is totally eroded. The first is the capacity for self-leadership. Most couples in this pattern have gotten reactive. They've stopped responding to each other and just started reacting to life. They're just on a hamster wheel going round and round and round, which means conversations don't go anywhere useful, right? Someone brings something up, the other partner gets defensive or shuts down or even dismisses it. And both people quietly learn that it's safer not to go there. That's probably just best if I don't bring it up and just keep it to myself. Now, self-leadership is learning to regulate yourself enough to stay present when conversations get tough. Instead of saying something like, you never make time for us, it shifts and it becomes, I've been feeling disconnected. And I want to talk to you about that because our connection matters to me. It's the same concern, but it's landing completely differently. The second capacity is what we call conscious communication. Now, the ability to say what's true for you without attacking, without withdrawing, without dominating, without trying to control. Most couples, individuals got their default moves when something gets hard. Right? Things get too hot, they become accusatory, they blame, they become defensive. Maybe they become quiet, maybe they shut down, maybe they try to take it on all by themselves, right? Moving out of collaboration. Conscious communication is the space where real conversations tend to live. It's where we're able to have talks in a meaningful way that are collaborative. And the third capacity is what we call genuine connection. Right? This is the one that actually, honestly gets neglected the most in these flat relationships. Most of what they're doing is just talking. There's no depth. There's no playfulness. There's no curiosity. There's no physical affection, physical presence. It's, the part of the relationship and genuine connection are the parts that have nothing to do with running a household and being efficient. It's the part that purely exists because you choose and love each other. And these three capacities, they're what we call the evolved marriage model. That's what I use in my coaching with couples. And here's what I've seen over and over again. When couples understand the specific habits that create connection and start rebuilding those habits deliberately, that roommate pattern starts reversing way faster than a lot of people expect. Because the drift is not a permanent thing. It's just actually kind of a direction. And directions can shift with a little bit of effort and intention. Now, I want to say something here that I think really matters because I don't want to leave you with just this framework. I actually want to leave you with a different standard of relating. A lot of couples hear the roommate pattern and, honestly, they think to themselves, well, at least we're not miserable. At least we're not fighting all the time. At least we're not, there's not tension and anger. And I get that. After a lot of conflict or a lot of hard years, stability can feel like something worth protecting. But I gently want to push against that. Stability is not the goal here. Stability is just like the floor. You didn't commit your life to someone just to run a household efficiently. I mean, be real with yourself. You committed to sharing a life with them, to being known by them, to building something that actually feels like something, not just something that functions efficiently. A great marriage isn't one that doesn't break or just is together forever. It's actually one that keeps growing, keeps surprising you, keeps giving you something to reach towards. And I mean, I know that might sound abstract if you're in the middle of that flat season, right? You're like, Eric, what does that even mean? But if you've been in management mode for a few years, if the last time the relationship felt genuinely alive for you, that's hard to remember, I think here's what's really important for you to take away. A stable marriage is not the same as a deeply connected marriage. And most of the couples I've seen who come through this pattern, they didn't do it by working harder and, being more efficient. They did it by understanding what had actually gone quiet and making a decision to stop accepting flat as the standard of marriage. Because having a flat marriage is not inevitable. It's a direction that can be reversed, no matter how long it's been. And it usually starts with one couple or even just one person deciding that they want more than just stability in a marriage. Now, before we get to the end of this video, let me give you a few questions that I want you to sit with. Not to judge your relationship, right? Don't use these just to shame yourself, but just to get an honest look at where you're at. When was the last time you and your partner laughed together? And I mean like genuinely, like not politely, right? Like at a dinner party. When was the last time one of you initiated something that had nothing to do with the schedule? Not a conversation about what needs to happen, just a moment for its own sake. And this one too, right? If a close friend asked your partner what's actually going on with you lately, not the surface version, right? The real version of you, would your partner even know how to answer them? Those questions, I mean, they're not designed to alarm you. They're designed to help you see where the drift might have started in your own relationship. Because all transformation starts with truth, and you really can't reverse a direction if you're unwilling to name the truth of the pattern. This roommate pattern develops in a lot of good relationships between people who care about each other, who are doing their best, who honestly built something real together, a life together. It develops not because the love ran out in the relationship, but because no one told these two people that connection has to be tended to consistently. That a marriage needs more than just maintenance. It needs someone reaching towards the other person and revealing themselves. And they're doing this not because things are broken, but because what you're building together is worth more than just keeping it going. Imagine a version of your relationship where that Saturday morning feels like something, where conversations are exciting again and they go somewhere, where you still surprise each other, where the person you chose still feels like somebody you're choosing every day and still discovering. That version isn't reserved for the early years of a relationship. It's available at any point in a marriage where two people decide that stability is just not enough. That decision is the beginning of everything. If any part of this video felt familiar to you, if you recognized your relationship somewhere in what we talked about today, I want you to know something. The roommate pattern doesn't mean you made the wrong choice or you and your partner are incompatible or that you can't be happy again. It doesn't mean that the love is gone. It means no one taught you what connection actually requires in a long-term relationship. And that's a really solvable problem. You know, I put together a simple thing that helps with that because you say to the end, this is my gift to you. It's called the Connection Blueprint. Honestly, it's for couples who are stable, but know that something has gone a bit quiet. These are couples who aren't in crisis, but aren't really connected either. Couples who've been in management mode long enough that it's started to feel normal. Like this just is what it is. Most people assume that a flat relationship, needs more effort. But the blueprint shows you exactly which habits keep emotional and physical connection alive, and the specific things that quietly shut it down without either person realizing it. It's totally free. It's my gift to you. And honestly, it only takes a few minutes to go through, and it will change what you're paying attention to. The link is below. My gift to you.